The anxiety rates are off the charts. The suicide rates are higher than ever. So many things that they did that we just will never have any kind of recourse for. But yeah, what you described was a really damaging era in the lives of children that they'll never get back. That's it. That childhood moment is gone. I think part of it is that, and going back to that forced conformity, it's a way of dividing us. It's like, what's a woman? What's, we don't even know what this means. Like these are words that have no meaning. It's a way of making sure that we stay divided and don't unite over anything so that they can keep us in control and that they can keep the kids indoctrinated.
What about the professional class related to all of this? So talking about like the teacher class and the administrators, whether it's at a school or at a hospital, like were any of them trying to fight too?
So part of the problem is that the people who give them their licensing, for doctors, for example, or teachers' colleges are very leftist, and they teach them how to be indoctrinators. And I think Bethany could speak more to the licensing. She wrote the chapter on it in our book.
Yeah, so one of the scariest parts that sort of came out of COVID was that if you were accused of spreading misinformation, and misinformation was narrowly defined as COVID misinformation, but now it's defined more broadly into any misinformation. And so, reproductive health in the wake of Roe versus Wade falling, if you're spreading misinformation about reproductive health, your license is at risk. And so I wrote a piece for The Spectator about the fall of Roe versus Wade and all these things, and no one would talk to me on the record because they said, I can lose my license. And who defines misinformation and who makes these decisions, all of it is secret. And so I can just get a letter one day that says I've had my license revoked. And so all of this is permeating through licensing for psychiatry, for medical. To get into med school, you have to answer questions that, it's a litmus test. How will you implement DEI in your professional life as a medical professional of any kind?
Which basically means kill more white people, right? Like at some level, right? Like if you want equity in health, like.
Yeah, what we saw with the COVID vaccinations, the first priority in which state was it?
I think
California.
I think Oregon did it too, or maybe the city of Portland or something.
Yes. So you didn't get it first if you were a white male.
Yeah.
Tough luck. Gotta wait.
Well, in actuality, it was probably pretty good, but that wasn't the intention. What about the psychological level for your kids? Because I remember at the height of COVID craziness, I hadn't seen my family in like 6 months. I was like, forget this. I'm going back to New York just to see my parents and see my nieces and nephews. And I go into my nephew's room, and I think he was in 6th grade at the time, maybe 5th grade, and he's got a computer and he's in school. But like he was also like playing on his Switch and like doing his thing, and I was like, Ian, like what's the deal with this? And he's like, it's so stupid. Like everybody knows it's stupid. Nobody's paying attention. Like in the most pure, innocent possible way.
Right.
But the way they destroyed like kids.
Absolutely. The anxiety rates are off the charts. The suicide rates are higher than ever. So many things that they did that we just will never have any kind of recourse for. But yeah, what you described was a really damaging era in the lives of children that they'll never get back. That's it. That childhood moment is gone. I think part of it is that, and going back to that forced conformity, it's a way of dividing us. It's like, what's a woman? What's, we don't even know what this means. Like these are words that have no meaning. It's a way of making sure that we stay divided and don't unite over anything so that they can keep us in control and that they can keep the kids indoctrinated.
Yeah. And again, like this goes way past just COVID, but COVID was a great accelerator for all of this stuff. And you can't revolutionize an entire society when everyone is happy and content.
Exactly.
And so the misery and the anxiety and the depression of all of these kids is the goal, because that's how you further change, because they see that stuff is messed up and they need to fix it. And so, who cares if they lose a couple in the ends justify the means.
Yeah, well, that's why I do believe it's intentional now.
Yeah,
I used to try my best, and I still do to some degree, to not go after everybody's motives. But after, you, I think, moved here a day before I did to Florida, right? Or the day after me.
Smart.
We're right there, right? We landed probably within 24 hours of each other, upend our lives, come here. Now you're here. Your kids are going to school. Yeah. There's no chance they're going to be masked or forced. That changes literally everything, right?
And again, it's not just the masking, right? Because apparently we're past COVID, Joe Biden says.
Not for that emergency order. Still got that till May.
Still going.
We got COVID-25.
Right, it's coming. But you know, the whole Ron DeSantis not allowing woke nonsense in schools, which means that my kids who are in public school, I feel safer with them at those schools, and I don't worry about them as much. They don't have like 12 trans friends each because it just hasn't hit here in the same way that it hit New York. But the thing that we always say is that you shouldn't feel safe and confident if you live in a red area. It's coming to you too. The teachers go to the teachers' colleges where they learn Marxism, which they pass along to your children. This is happening everywhere. We heard from people in small towns and rural areas and deep red states, and they were all saying, my kids are getting it too.
What do you say is the ultimate answer to this at the school level? I mean, is it pure school choice and funding students instead of systems, and doing the homeschooling thing? I mean, is it basically obliterating education as we know it?
We have different paths, but you talk about yours first. Yeah.
So we homeschool, and I have no intention of doing otherwise. I mean, I don't live in a red state. I live in the most liberal county in a quite liberal state. I live in Montgomery County, Maryland.
Why has Montgomery County gone so bananas? Every time I see something out of Montgomery, it's like beyond woke. It seems like
part of it is because a lot of us journalist folks live there, and so
that's it. Because it's Maryland, it shouldn't be that crazy, right?
So the stories that we are getting published on Fox News, and I have a hand in a lot of them. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that gets published, I'm feeding to people because it's not my zone, but I want it out there. And it's because I have the privilege of having the email address of a Fox News reporter. There's people in Indiana and in Oklahoma who don't have that privilege. Doesn't mean it's not happening there. Yeah. And so, you know, for us, like, we homeschool and we are very choosy about the friends that our kids have. But my DMs on Twitter are a repository of all of the crazy MCPS stories. Yeah. But what's really sort of crazy is that they are so open about it. They're so proud about it. And so a lot of the stuff that I end up passing on to Fox News reporters is stuff that they've posted publicly on their own Twitter feeds.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like libs of TikTok, right?
Yes,
it's like people are like, oh, she's attacking these people, but literally she's reposting their own videos. So how do you differ in terms of that? I mean, you're not
So my kids are at public and private, and we really lay the line down at home that this is what we believe and these are the values that we want you to carry out into the world. And so a lot of it requires being really honest with our children about our beliefs, because parents say that, we don't really talk about with our kids about that. Well, we don't talk about necessarily politics. We don't talk to them about like which political candidates we like or anything like that. But we do talk to them about values, and that's important. You want to get the message to your kids and you want to lay the foundation for them, because a lot of the time you will have to let them go eventually. They will get to college and they'll face this wokeness no matter how much you've protected them. And it's important that they know where they came from.
Yeah, and I mean, not just tell them, but also live it. I mean, they watched me scream at Montgomery County Council on Zoom meetings, and I would sit there for an hour and 45 minutes, and they never tell you your time slot for speaking for 2 minutes on Zoom. So you have to sit there. And so there's one video of me holding one of my babies, and they turn on the camera, and I was the first one testifying for this portion of the county council bill. And so I just let loose and started screaming at them. And my kids at the end of it were like, first of all, you're terrifying. I do not want to get on your bad side.
We're not going to homeschool tomorrow.
They like sort of avoided me for the next 4 hours. But they saw that I was screaming about them. I was yelling at them about how kids were being treated, about how my son was yelled at in a supermarket because he wasn't wearing a mask, because I wasn't. Just because I'll play along to go into the supermarket doesn't mean I'm going to make my kids do it. And so my kid got yelled at in the supermarket. And I said, this is your fault, Montgomery County Public, like the county council. And they saw I was fighting for them. And that is really powerful, and they got it.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of mindless dribble, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.